Welcome to the Explainer. You know, predicting a nation's future is, well, it's tough enough on a good day, but how do you do it when the variables range from ancient mysticism all the way to cutting-edge political tech? Today, we're tackling a truly fascinating synthesis of ideas. Our goal is to take three incredibly diverse sources. We're talking about the esoteric wisdom of Carpathian mystics on one end and the cold, calculated strategies of modern political technologists on the other, and we're going to weave them into one cohesive, impartial narrative about Ukraine's future as we approach the critical year of 2026. We're looking at how destiny, politics, and global economics are literally colliding in real time, all based directly on the fascinating material we've curated for you today. So let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to navigate four key themes today. First up, the prophecies of 2026. Second, new political projects. Third, Western fatigue. And finally, global shifts and crises.
Starting off with Section 1, Prophecies of 2026, viewed through the mystical lens.
Before we look at the specific dates these historical seers predicted, we really need to understand who is making these claims. Our first source focuses heavily on a man named Mikhailo Nechai. He was a Molfar. Now, a Molfar isn't just your local village herbalist. In the Carpathian Mountains, they're considered holders of ancient generational knowledge. They are healers and seers who literally read nature itself. And according to the text, Nechai was a deeply, deeply respected figure. So much so that even skeptical Soviet-era officials and modern bureaucrats who tried to shut him down often ended up secretly knocking on his door asking for advice.
Now, what makes Nechai's story stand out in our source material is his remarkably accurate timeline. Look at the progression here. Back in 2004, during the Orange Revolution, he reportedly told celebrating visitors that this was just a warm-up. Then he predicted a bloody storm exactly 10 years later, which of course aligns perfectly with the events of 2014. He also foresaw a great fire from the north, echoing what happened in 2022. But the most crucial part of his timeline, it's the window we are entering right now, 2025 to 2027. He called this period the harvest. According to the source, this is when the seeds planted over the last decade will finally yield their results, leading to an abrupt and completely unpredictable turning point.
What's truly incredible here is how the source juxtaposes Nechai's timeline with corroborating visions from completely different figures. They bring up Archimandrite Ioan Christiankin, a highly revered Orthodox spiritual leader, and Wolf Messing, a famous 20th century seer. Christiankin actually noted that, quote, "Out of the ashes will rise a people whom no one took seriously." All three of these seers, who are totally separated by tradition and geography, repeatedly touched on this exact same theme. An unconventional leader rising to prominence outside the traditional halls of power, leading the nation through a fire of transformation.
And this brilliantly illustrates the crossroads for Ukraine's current leadership, at least according to the Molfar. The source neutralizes any political bias by presenting two very distinct fateful paths. Path 1 is being forged in fire. This is where the leader burns away their past persona, finds their inner steel, and walks beside the people as a true leader, ultimately bringing revival. Path 2, on the other hand, is being broken by pride. This is where the leader succumbs to flatterers, loses touch with reality, and is swiftly discarded and replaced by another, unknown figure. It's a stark dichotomy for sure, and it sets the stage perfectly for the very real political maneuvering happening right now.
That brings us to Section 2, New Political Projects, viewed through the political lens.
Leaving those mystical destinies behind for a moment, our source introduces a fascinating theory regarding the gritty, calculated reality of Ukraine's current political landscape. Analysts argue that Mikhailo Fedorov, the Minister of Digital Transformation, is being artificially elevated as a sort of Teflon alternative to current leadership figures, people like President Zelensky, General Zaluzhny, or Intelligence Chief Budanov. The text describes Fedorov as a classic golden boy. He's specifically tailored to appeal to the urban, tech-savvy middle class who might be looking for a fresh, completely unblemished face.
So, you might be wondering, how do you actually engineer a political myth like that? Well, the analysts in the text break down the exact steps being used. Step 1. Completely isolate him from any military or administrative failures. Just keep him away from the bad news. Step 2. Attribute every major technological success, we're talking drone innovations, Starlink connectivity, the whole shebang, directly to his personal efforts, even if the military command actually played a much larger role. And Step 3. Use this carefully curated track record to manufacture an untouchable golden boy image. It's a literal masterclass in political technology, really proving that sometimes a good PR myth is way more powerful than the chaotic realities on the ground.
Moving on to Section 3, Western fatigue. The global lens. So why are these internal political machinations happening right now? Well, it's driven by a rapidly shifting geopolitical reality. Just take a look at the steep decline in these metrics provided by the source. The number of nations actively giving arms, that's dropped from 21 in 2022 to just 14 today. We are seeing a massive decline in Western backing. Over in France, public support for military aid dropped from 65% down to 47%. In Germany, active support for military aid is sitting at just 32%. And this fatigue was pretty much punctuated recently by Bulgaria's blunt refusal to provide any further arms or funds, basically declaring that diplomacy is now the only path forward.
And this massive 18% you're seeing, that is the record low approval rating of French President Emmanuel Macron, according to the source material. The sources highlight that the domestic political crises of key Western allies are severely limiting their ability to support Ukraine. I mean, between Macron's plummeting ratings and the rapid rise of the opposition Alternative for Germany party, which, by the way, strongly opposes further aid, the political space for European leaders to maintain their current strategies is shrinking by the absolute minute.
The material also introduces a rather bleak framework to explain this geopolitical maneuvering. Commentators call it the Wildfield theory. The premise is dark, but honestly, it's simple. Western transnational oligarchs are deliberately prolonging the conflict to exhaust both Europe and Eurasia. So what's the ultimate goal? To transform the entire continent into a depopulated, fractured wildfield. The idea is that if organized societies break down, corporate interests can just extract wealth without the pesky obstacle of strong sovereign states getting in the way.
And finally, Section 4, Global Shifts and Crises, Macro Threats.
These massive global shifts we're talking about are exactly what could completely redefine that crucial 2026 timeline we discussed at the beginning. The commentators rapidly summarize several disparate global threats that are basically converging all at once. First, an allegedly unprecedented planned visit by the FBI director to Moscow in October, which hints at some massive back-channel security talks. Second, a new China-led artificial intelligence alliance that actually includes Russia and Belarus. Add to this the physical threats, like vital maritime choke points in the Middle East being threatened or blocked, all while the U.S. strategic oil reserves are sitting heavily depleted. Each one of these factors creates a major ticking clock for Western geopolitical strategies.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between the wars of today and the wars of tomorrow. While current conflicts are obviously defined by physical warfare, trenches, artillery, maritime blockades, the sources point out that the global elite are already looking way past this. Recent Bilderberg meetings have reportedly shifted their primary focus almost entirely to digital warfare. We're talking artificial intelligence platforms, space technology, and cyber intelligence. The real arms race isn't for artillery shells anymore. It's the race for AI dominance. Because whoever controls the data and the AI platforms will absolutely dictate the future theater of geopolitics.
So, what does this all mean? As we look toward that harvest window of 2026, we are left with a pretty profound question. Is the future of this region truly being shaped by mystical destiny? The inevitable rise of an unexpected leader forged in the fire of crisis? Or is it being entirely orchestrated by the cold, pragmatic designs of political technologists, transnational oligarchs, and the impending AI arms race? Our sources offer vastly different lenses, but they all agree on one thing for sure. The world as we know it is approaching a definitive, completely irreversible crossroads. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the narrative.